Well, we figured out the fuel pressure is running about 15 pounds. And I looked at my video when I rebuilt this Carter fuel pump, doing some talking with guys on Facebook. There's a lot of Darrins that have the AC pump, but there's also quite a few of them that have the Carter pump. And it is a Willys engine. The Willis guys also used Carter carburetors and Carter fuel pumps, so there's a good chance they're, Carter's ended up on Darrin. So what I read in the Willis book is the pressure's basically controlled by diaphragm, rubber, and spring strength. And then in the Kaiser Fraser manual, it'll talk about putting extra gaskets behind the fuel pump to lower pressure because it'll not give as much throw to the arm. I think that would be super small changes. And typically distance is just going to change the gallon per hour rating. You get more throw, you get more volume. So the spring rate should be fairly constant inside these, so to some degree. So I'm going to put a fuel pressure regulator in. I'm gonna hardline it and basically follow the same pattern as the OEM did. And I'm going to mount, I've cut this bracket that came with this. I bought this at AutoZone. It's a 0 to 5 pound. I'm going to kind of mount it in at an angle like that. That way I can actually, it'll be setting over this way a little bit, kind of like that. That way you can come up through the bottom and then out away from the exhaust with the fuel, and then I'll chase this line like the other one did. And I'll make sure I put the OEM bracket on the fuel line so I can turn this corner, and there's a short little straight run where that straight piece can go in there and then run it up. So that's the plan. And then I can dial the pressure to exactly what I want, no matter what kind of variation we get in fuel pumps. Got the fuel pressure regulator mounted. Now I'll just make a connection from here to the input side down here, and then I'll route it up. Okay, we got the fuel pressure regulator in. Ran the line up along the oil line just like the regular one and brought it into the carburetor there. And looks like we've got the pressure adjusted pretty well now. Come over here with my starter that I've got temporarily higher. Car starts and idles really good. Yeah. Not flooding out. Good response. I did have to fight one thing. That oil 90-degree turn there, I didn't know it didn't have a compression fitting in it. It's just a 90-degree turn. So the oil line that was hooked up to that guy right there, he had the one coming down, yeah. So that oil fitting right there is having a heck of a time sealing, and then I found out it's because there was no compression. So you can see the compression fitting that I put on the bottom of that, and now it doesn't drip any oil. So got no oil drips, no fuel drips, no coolant drips. So I want to stop for today on that and see if we can get the I noticed a couple intake clicks maybe in this area. So, and you're supposed to set those with it running. I just had to get them close with it not running. So I may take this off tomorrow and run the intake valves, and then I can start doing some more wiring. Okay, from that, 5 is, I did 1 through 4 already. 5 is just a little bit tight, and 6 is just a little bit loose. So, loosen this one up just a hair. And then I'll tighten this one just a little. I'm just making small moves here. And then I restart the engine, and you can kind of feel the gauge will kind of, like it feeds in and feeds back out, and you know it's just right there. It'll go in real easy if it's bigger than the 18 thousandths. Good now, and 6 is good. Got them all good. Before I did this, I was hearing some clacking, but now it's really smooth. Got the intake valve lash set. Sounds nice and quiet. Next, I got the ignition mounted in there. Just this bezel tightens it on. There's a couple little like scrapers that keep it from rotating. Scrapes across the bottom of the inside of the fiberglass there. And I want to do that so I can stop using my remote starter. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these other 2 gauges in the hole here. Speedometer, hook that up, and then the temperature gauge. I want to get that put in so I can let the engine warm up and see how the temperature gauge is working also. Okay, got the other 2 gauges in, no problems there. Got to start studying some wire diagrams now and see if we can get this ignition switch so we can at least start the car with that switch instead of the remote. Well, I'm putting that ignition switch in. The cigarette lighter goes in right in the same area where these heavy wires are for ignition system and connections. So I thought I might as well put those in. And you see, it looks like it's got like a light socket fitting. So you push this in from the front, and then from the back side you have this guy that it screws into, and then this acts as a nut to keep it on. And then there's a little ground screw there too. So I'm going to go ahead and hook a wire to that with, you know, a foot or something now. I don't, there's got to be another wire in there somewhere, but I don't see where it connects to this yet. Yeah, I found it. There's the cigar lighter. So there's the cable I want to put on, and that ground cable just comes over here and it just says connect to instrument mounting stud, and there's one right there near it. So I'll just make a short little wire, because I don't see a short little wire anywhere. So I'll make a little 6-inch jumper and connect it onto that stud. Back up under the dash, and got the temperature sensor on here, and then this is the key, the amp gauge. And then this is the other side of the amp gauge. Cigar lighter. This is the ground wire I just installed to that stud. So I'm assuming this cable goes here. Once you start getting some of these, they it's like the only cable that'll reach. So I'm going to double check the drawing to make sure this wire is the one that goes to the other side of the temperature gauge. Okay. Got the key and ignition system set up. I had to run a special wire as white for the ignition to the starter. There was no wire in the wire harness for that, so, but it works. Starts right up. We got the accelerator hooked up now. Sounds like a little sports car. Yesterday we got the key ignition installed in the car, so now I can start it inside there. So Today I'm going to hook the fan up, and then also the generator comes on this side, and then we got to go under the car and hook up pedals and drive shaft, and I want to replace that differential seal, get the bottom all buttoned up, and then we'll come back to wiring after that. Here we've got the temperature gauge. After I hooked that up, got the pump and everything on, starting to build some temperature, so gauge is working. Let it see if it stays up around 170 there or so. And then I also hooked up the generator, and if I give it a little throttle, we should see a plus charge. So that's good. Just a little bit of squeak out of the generator. I put some oil in the oiler, and we'll see if it comes out of it or not, but it might be a point in the future I'll have to replace that bearing. We'll see. Just oil pressure check. At idle, we're running around 20 pounds or so. A little bit of throttle. Goes up around 50 or so. That's good. The car's been running for about 5 minutes or so. Looks like we're staying around that 160, 170 mark right now. So I think we're in good shape there. Just want to take a moment to go over the wiring on this generator. There's 3 wires that come off here in the diagram. You've basically got a field and a ground, and then there's an A label there, and you can see where that comes up. The ground off of the case right here comes up and grounds on the case here on that bolt. And then we've got this black cable that runs up under the dash, and it's in a splice with a whole bunch of wires that come back to the battery basically. And then there's a BAT connection here, and then the little green wire is a field connector on the voltage regulator. One of my earlier videos, inside there were damage, and I did the repairs on that, and it's charging nice. Gotta clean some of this old paint out of the speedometer. So this piece goes in there. There's a little gear that goes on the end of this. I'll stick the gear on there before it goes in, but I gotta clean these surfaces up and get some of that paint out of that hole, so this will slide up in there. You can kind of see that that's some overspray from the original color paint that was on this. Got the speedometer cable attached in there. Putting this transmission connections all together. Got to get this overdrive mechanical link cable put back together. Same as that other, they snipped it off and they sent it out for chrome. So I got to weld that back on and clean a little bit of extra chrome off. There's a slot that runs down through this. You can see that slot there. It's got extra chrome in there. So I'm going to use a Dremel and just slightly cut that out so it'll slide easily into the metal receiver here. Still plenty of chrome. I took a little bit off down here on this end. You don't see this so much. When you pull it out, you'll see some of it, but just got to take some of that off. It's too thick yet. Now we got it working really nice. Still looks good. Didn't take any chrome off here, and you gotta, got to have the clearance in there. So here we go again, trying to weld one of these. I got the angles touching each other there, so we're gonna try to weld those together. Next thing on this transmission, I got to hook up this overdrive cable. See, it's got a piece on here that will feed in from the back side, and then this has a flat spot on it here, so it goes in that hole right there. It's got the flat spot up, and it's keyed so that you can read it. So I'm gonna go ahead and feed that through. Okay, we're under the car, and what we're looking at here now is we had the overdrive cable. It came up. This is the one we just fixed, and this is the overdrive lever that can activate overdrive. And then of course you got there's a governor here, governor up here, and this will kick it in, but it won't actually go into overdrive unless you let off the gas above like 30, the governor, then it'll kick the overdrive in. So we've got all the cables, all the electrics hooked up, and whenever I pulled this engine, we had some fluid drain out, so I've pulled the cap on the overdrive unit, and then also the cap on the main transmission, and we're just going to pump some fluid in there until they're full and starts to run out a little bit, and then we'll have those capped off, and then I'll put the drive shaft back on.